It was a fun week. It was an interesting week. It was a week of trending stories that we really, really had our interest sparked for. So, obviously, we need to break it down. Obviously, we need to entertain and inform you, the audience members. And who is that to do it with? Well, it's time to do our simulcast with the TweetCap. Without further ado, Ryan Page, welcome back once again for the Productive Conversations podcast slash TweetCap recap and simulcast. So a lot of wordy words on this one, but how are we doing, Ryan?
Doing good. It's been a while. We should just call it something. We should call it like the TweetCap recap or the simul. We should just give it a name. We have so many
Yes,
names for it. We'll have to work on that. But for now, let's keep all the names. See which one feels the best.
for sure. So we'll start with the original name for now, maybe change for the next one, but TweetCap simulcast with the Productive Conversations podcast. So yes, we'll condense that easily. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting week. So to say, Ryan, what's going on but otherwise besides this crazy week you were in? You were away over the week of
Yep.
last week?
I was away, so that's always nice to you know, not be doing not be home, to be
Mm-hmm.
somewhere else. But I know that we got a lot of wedding planning done while I was away actually.
Look
So
at that.
that's kind of cool. We're gonna be looking at venues, which is a process as it
Mm.
turns out, based upon availability. So many people had their wedding canceled with the first wave of COVID that it's super competitive. And now, I mean, now there's people telling us that we might have to wear masks inside and we're still a
Ooh.
year away. Like it's crazy that this is still going on. I had
Yeah.
no idea in my brain that this would even be something that I had to consider. But sure enough, it is. We started. I suggested it first, looking for some place that does outdoor as well as indoor. So again, hopefully everyone is getting vaccinated, so that way nobody has to wear a mask. But
Right.
I mean, numbers are not looking good depending on where you live. Sorry for all you folks. You know who you are, who live in the
Mhm.
spots that are getting hit hardest. Obviously, stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe. Get vax. I mean, with all these incentives people are offering, I mean, you get
Yeah,
$100
I should
in
have
New
held
York
out.
City for that, right? But yeah, we'll hopefully patiently wait, and who knows where things can roll if we follow these rules. And
I had to pretend to have a health condition to get my vaccination. Now, if I just waited, I could have gotten free beer. I could have gotten $100. These
oh
people, I have
man,
my all my priorities are apparently very wrong. I could have been milking this for all it was worth, and instead, I was like, how do I convince them I'm 62?
yeah, right. Well, for all you unvaccinated, you have quite the incentives, and then in the end, you don't have to wear a mask indoors. Isn't that the ultimate win of all? So let's see where that all lies and takes place. But follow the rules, everybody. So
Yes.
already one trending story done. So we could go to the next one with that. So Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
let's talk first. The first story you want to talk about has to involve both maybe a resurgence of a infamous rock band,
Oh
a
God.
lessons learned for music festivals, and a documentary that I almost would consider a horror documentary with the legitimate troubling footage. But Ryan, elaborate more with your first story
Well,
today.
yeah. So everyone, for continuity's sake, if you listened to our last tweet cap, Matt told me to watch the Woodstock 99. What's it? Peace, Love, and Rage, right?
Yes, that's the documentary,
Peace, Love, and Rage.
part of the
Um,
music box series for HBO.
yep. And so of course I waited until yesterday to do it. Because it's not like I was on vacation or anything. Um, but I did watch it yesterday and I went into it, and again, you can listen to the previous conversation on it. I went into it not sure what to expect. I had heard that they made some connections that I wasn't so sure would make sense, and
Mm-hmm.
after watching it, I think everything was presented well. I thought it was really good.
Yo,
I ended up
yeah.
watching it with Melissa. I started watching it, and I was like, "Hey, watch this." I paused. I was like, "You should watch this. This is good."
Mm-hmm.
And she had no information about Woodstock 99, other than like, like vaguely understanding certain things. I mean, we were what, 4 years old, 5 years
Yeah.
old. So it's not like it was something that we would have really known. I happen to
Word
know about it because,
advertising it on Nick.
right. Yeah, well, no, thank God. That would have been quite the education
Yeah.
for a young Matt Brown.
Oh my
Had
goodness.
that crowd been on Nick Jr. Um, and you know what? They're Viacom, so there's a world where it was for sure gonna get advertised on Nick
Oh.
Jr. If it happened in 2021, that's exactly how it would have gone down. It would have been, cross promoted, and JoJo Siwa and like the cast of, I don't know, what's the Nickelodeon show?
Now I have
Yeah,
no idea. I mean, iCarly Paramount Plus reboot is the
sure.
closest.
Yeah, JoJo Siwa and Miranda Cosgrove would be hosting this thing and just freaking out. uh, kind of like how Carson Daly was hosting it and just freaking out. But
Yeah.
so it was crazy to get that extra level of information. Like I knew the overarching story, I knew about the Limp Bizkit, and then the Chili Peppers with their ill-timed song,
Yeah.
and then so on and so forth. So I
Playing
kind of knew all.
fire
Yeah,
as a fire. The
decent
Jimmy
version of that song though.
Yeah,
Their version.
The Jimi Hendrix fire, Jimi
Yeah.
Hendrix Experience fire, and then they covered it only while a major fire was being created.
So I think I've heard their version in its entirety. So I think at some point they did record it, or they had a live show that wasn't burning down that they did that song at. But it's a pretty good version of the song.
Yeah.
Just again, ill-timed. In a way that's actually even where you're talking about. Limp Bizkit came back. That's kind of what got us on this path, to make sure we watched it so we could talk about it. And which is fine. They have every right to perform music. I don't know any Limp Bizkit fans in real life, but there have to be some. We watched them tear down a military base. So
right. But yeah.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us the overarching theme for people who haven't seen the documentary? Like, what is the Woodstock 99 documentary about as a whole?
Well, it's about the Woodstock 99 Music Festival, and how, well, the documentary certainly called it horrific. I would say that one half of the promoters disagrees with that categorization
yes.
wholeheartedly. He's an idiot. The other promoter is far more calculated in what he says. He doesn't defend it quite as much. He just tries whenever possible to mention good things. He had the benefit, Michael Lang had the benefit of also being, I believe he's promoted in some capacity every single Woodstock.
Right.
So he has the benefit of being able to say, oh, I did it 3 times. Only one of them went wrong. The other guy, I don't believe, has that same track record. I think he just did it once and it was wrong. Yeah. And so that's why John Shear, both at Woodstock 99, you can see all of the press footage, from the press tent, where it was straight out of a White House press briefing from a previous president who shall not be named. It was all the same tactics, which I thought was just baffling, and it's baffling, but not really. And that gets into one of the more, I don't want to say bizarre actually, but one of the claims that was far more controversial for people who were talking about the documentary before it came out, the rage portion, and this festering rage that the documentary says is still, around. And I mean, it's really hard to look at the last 2 years and say that that's inaccurate. Of course there's rage. We see it every day. And we've seen it every day since 1999. And they give different reasons for that. They also do talk about some of the performers and the performances and the way that, like, that was kind of, I mean, the DMX one in particular, they gave him a lot of credit for doing what he did. They also focused on all 3 of the female headliners, of which there were only 3.
Exactly. And they spread them out on the 3 days too.
Yes. It wasn't
to
on
see
purpose.
if anyone noticed.
It wasn't on purpose, they said. And I think everything could have been avoided if, they had just taken that Saturday night lineup of Kid Rock, Limp Bizkit, and Metallica.
Yeah.
If they had just thrown Jewel in there somewhere.
Right before Metallica.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Just really bring it down. Do Kid Rock, Jewel, Limp Bizkit, and then end it with Alanis Morissette, right? There was a way to
diversity,
do it.
right?
There was a way to do it that was far more calm than what they did. But that's neither here nor there. The point is they talk about those musicians and the impact they had on the broader culture and the impact that their performance had, which I thought was very cool to talk about that. Like I said, DMX, by all accounts, absolutely killed his set. And that is impressive for the time, 1999, to have a rapper be able to play a festival like that.
Right.
With that audience and absolutely kill it, universally acclaimed. Again, that was probably the first time a lot of people saw that style of music as being mainstream and broad, because that was a broad audience. That was the 18 to 30 whatever year olds. That's who was there. And so to see that wasn't a niche genre, but rather a powerful genre, could very well be why, because they talked a lot about that, the new metal, or the new rock, that was supposed to be this merging of hip hop and rock. That was supposed to be the mainstream, taking rock and making it modern. And I don't think it didn't happen. Because we don't listen to
exactly,
but we do listen to hip hop now.
Right.
And I think that's because hip hop won. Hip hop was cooler. And I would say DMX probably had something to do with that, by putting him on a show with Metallica, with the Chili Peppers, with Limp Bizkit, and he didn't feel out of place. So that was a really cool part. Obviously, they got into other stuff in regards to that particular set. Again, they focused very heavy on the rage. I just didn't want to get into that yet. So that's a different part of that. And there was another one they said that did exceptionally well, and I don't remember who.
The group that had a critically acclaimed performance.
Yeah, there was another group that did really well, and I don't remember who it was.
You said Rage Against the Machine had a really good set. Was it the end with Megadeth that closed out?
I think people did like the Megadeth one. The Megadeth was fun and funny because everything was on fire and they're like peace sells. But there was it was very interesting to see. And I mean, the documentary goes as far as to say is the Woodstock 69 documentary that we've seen, because obviously we have no connection to Woodstock 69. That's almost a fairy tale itself. Yeah. And thinking about it, I had never really thought about it, but watching this one, that's probably true. There's just no way that in 1969, a bunch of, I shouldn't say there's no way. I'm sure it was less bad.
Right.
I'm sure it was less
still
bad.
Same circumstances. Would you put hundreds of thousands of people essentially unsupervised, all on
listening
drugs,
to rock music all day?
Yeah,
3 days straight. There had to have been problems.
Exactly.
But there were less. I'm sure there were less problems. I'm positive there were less problems. But I mean, when you think of 69, you don't think of any problems.
Yes, but at that time, late 60s, more folk music, more peace and love.
Well, it was considered rock, though.
Oh yeah, of course, rock. But when you compare it to the when you have Limp Bizkit having something literally called break stuff.
Well, I think that's one of the central points that they're making. It's one of the points that I agreed with the most.
Yeah,
is I think
generation.
Both, ironically enough, I think they were both technically catering to the same culture. It's just that culture had changed from 69 to 99.
Yeah.
I would say this is going to sound horrible, so I'm going to get criticized for it, but take it in the way I mean it, not in the words I say. Jimi Hendrix and Limp Bizkit are the same.
Yeah.
They're not actually, but Jimi Hendrix is to 18 to 32-year-olds in 1969 what Limp Bizkit is to 18 to 32-year-olds in 1999.
Right.
They're the same in that regard. Obviously, they're two very different people, very different musical styles, very different, I'm going to say, skill sets and abilities. Hendrix can play the guitar amazingly well. Fred Durst does that weird thing where he whines half the song and then growls the other half. So very different skill sets. And that's okay. But also, I think that the message, nowadays we look at 69, we'd say it's all folk music, because folk music is kind of how we've just categorized that group. If I had a hammer, I'd hammer in the morning. All like those protest songs and all of those like songs for social change. But that was because there was social changes brewing. You know what I mean? And in 1999, it was the strongest economy that they'd ever seen at that time. Not a single person who went to that Woodstock show who was over the age of 25 had to be unemployed for the most part.
Yeah,
obviously,
right.
Again, there's always exceptions. So if you're listening, sorry. But everything was good. So they don't have to hammer anything in the morning. They just have to break stuff. I think that was part of it. So I do think there was just, and that's there's so much wrapped up in that, because yes, it's the generation thing, the different types of music got more violent. It just did. Music got angry. Music was hopeful in 1969, and for a lot of reasons, that music, and there's like artistic, philosophical things you can say, and then there's just less philosophical things you could say about why it got angry. But it did get angry, so that's part of it. And part of it is that the point of Woodstock the first time was, well, there was a point, frankly. These artists got together for something, and these people who came got together for something, and it was theirs. And double fold for 1999. One, they tried to shove 1969 down everyone's throat. I mean, you've seen the stage, obviously you saw the documentary.
Yeah, very a lot of mural based, pretty colors.
Bad murals.
Yeah, they were just trying to get peaceful and stuff.
But look at it. Metallica performed on that stage. Metallica did.
Yeah.
Think of all of the other Metallica stages.
Yeah, very
Metallica. DMX performed on that stage. Think of all of his other stages.
Right, when you have the little Tweety birds up and the
this doesn't make any sense.
Flying around.
Nobody wanted that. That was there. Nobody was there because there had been a Woodstock in 1969. Nobody who showed up to that Woodstock was there because there had been another Woodstock. They couldn't care less. The musicians. That. Some of the musicians probably cared very deeply that they were performing Woodstock. I don't think any of those musicians are in Limp Bizkit, but I think some of the musicians cared quite a bit that they were at a Woodstock. However, that's it. The fans didn't care. It could have been the first one. They could, if 69 never happened and they just came up with this concert and just as the lineup is. Oh, I think Moby said it. He said, we really should just call it, concert at the Army base, 1999.
Yeah.
Everyone would have showed up. It wouldn't have changed a single thing about the people who showed up, because they didn't come because it was Woodstock. So trying to call back to 69 made no sense. That's number one. And number two, again, look at who performed. And it's not their fault. There's plenty of concerts that are not like violent that happen. Right. I mean, Metallica, how many shows do you think Metallica's done in their career?
Like literally hundreds of thousands.
Right. Probably. How many times do you think a mosh pit killed someone? Probably not that many.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not saying they all have.
Yeah, but when they perform like at Coachella or Lollapalooza, you don't have the same thing.
The Chili Peppers and Rage Against the Machine have both recently performed at Coachella.
Yeah, recently, exactly.
Like within the last 5 years. Actually, Rage Against the Machine was supposed to be last year, so I don't know if they've ever done it before. They were supposed to be last year, but even still, I'm counting it.
Exactly, they've performed since Woodstock '99. They've performed at those concerts too. Yeah, they've played at festivals, but they haven't had the violent outbreaks like this one did.
Yeah, so I'm not blaming the artists. I know some of the people in the documentary blame the artists, and most of the people who blame the artists are doing so because they're to blame.
Right. Didn't the guy John Shearer blame Limp Bizkit?
Limp Bizkit almost entirely.
Yeah.
And again, the fires didn't start until like the day after.
Exactly.
But to get to the point I was saying, like, look at who was there. This was clearly a commercial concert. This was a show to sell tickets. They put up a peace wall. Again, straight out of a former president's playbook. I won't say which one. And charged people a lot of money to go, and more money when they got there. And it was commercialized. That didn't happen in the first one.
No,
I'm sure they charged, and I'm sure some people paid.
And they said in the first one, they were just breaking into the fence. The first one, the 69 one.
And again, like, and this is where the other, and he's conspicuous with his quiet, the Michael Lang character.
Yes.
Because he's at all three. He promoted all three. Obviously, he said okay to the peace wall. Obviously, he was looking to get paid. Because, I mean, he knows that the people who listen to Janis Joplin and the people who listen to, I mean, think about the people they invited that didn't make sense. So they focused on Jewel, Alanis Morissette, and
Sheryl Crow.
Sheryl Crow, right? But beyond that, Rusted Root was there. Do you know who that is? Send Me on My Way. I would like to read, which I like. I actually like that song. But
probably if I heard this song, I would
I mean, Moby was there.
Moby,
which is a little different, but still, like, not every single one of those. This wasn't a heavy metal concert at all.
No.
But
you had Counting Crows and you had Counting Crows and Dave Matthews.
And Dave Matthews makes more sense. For a Woodstock, reunion. So he clearly had input, and yet he did approve all of the money stuff, because I think he saw, all right, this John guy, he's like, we're gonna headline Metallica.
Yeah,
which means we're gonna make a lot of money Saturday.
And then, this is late 90s when rock still had an influence on the mainstream too, Well,
it's probably the end of rock having an influence on the mainstream.
Yeah, exactly.
Frankly. And I don't know how much of that has to do with the fact that they burned down a military base, but it might. Because like I said, I think hip hop ended up winning. The new metal that was on that show was supposed to be the future.
Yeah, that's what they were claiming.
And they said that it was battling pop, regular pop, like the NSYNC, Britney Spears. It was them, and it was Limp Bizkit
and Korn.
Korn, right? Like, and Korn lost. Poor Korn. Look at him. But he lost, unfortunately. And listen, some of those bands I still like. Offspring, I like them.
Yeah.
I think Korn's fine. I think he gets a bad reputation. He meaning the lead singer. He's a little weird, but that's okay.
Yeah.
So like, and the Chili Peppers, again, classic group. And they fall pretty heavily into that group. Rage Against the Machine, another one. But there was clearly like a bit of a battle between pop and like new rock, this new metal, this new rock type. And then hip hop won against both of them.
I feel like rock almost destroyed itself. Like,
it could,
while hip hop did their thing and they just slid in. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see how that.
And think about rock and roll fans now. Like, a lot of the stuff we heard in the documentary where like they were mad at MTV. MTV had to evacuate the premises because people were mad at them for stealing their MTV.
Yeah, you saw they were throwing stuff at Carson Daly.
Yeah, super entitled. Because God forbid MTV play two types of music. And so, that entitled kind of feeling still sticks around in rock circles, where rock stars feel that they're superior to pop stars. No one wants to hear that. I like the Foo Fighters, I like the Offspring, I like the Chili Peppers. I don't want to hear about how all of the members of those bands are better than, X pop star or Y pop star or whatever, or how hip hop's not real music. Like, and it's those fans that are saying those. It's the rock fans that are saying that. Mm-hmm. No hip hop fan goes, yeah, the Red Hot Chili Peppers aren't legit. Like, I mean, maybe some of them do. Again, never want to speak in generalizations, but like, they don't care. They're like, because they wouldn't even think to compare, their music to someone else's music. It's completely different.
Right.
There's no comparison. So rock, for whatever reason, rock and roll for people felt like it was supposed to be the popular music. And it wasn't the only music, and that made them mad, which brings us perfectly into the segue for the last bit of this documentary talk, and that is I did the math last night, and the outlandish claim that the anger associated on the January 6th Capitol riots and the rage expressed in 1999, something that I outright said was silly to you, not personally. I said it privately to you.
Right.
I thought that's silly. There's just no way that democracy was overthrown by fans of Freak on a Leash. Just no way. And generally speaking, it wasn't, by the way. But age-wise, they actually match up perfectly.
Yep.
So I looked at a story on The Atlantic, and again, for people who invaded the Capitol, The Atlantic is not a reliable source, but for the rest of us, it is. And they took a look at 193 of the arrests, which, again, in fairness, not a huge sample size, but that's all we have. 193 of the arrests, and they found some demographic information. Obviously, they were pretty much all white, which we knew just by looking. Right. You can pretty much see that. They all supported Donald Trump for the most part, explicitly or implicitly, based on their beliefs. The average age of somebody arrested is 40, with like a third or 2/3 of the people being over the age of 35. I believe that was what I texted you last night.
Yep.
I know it's something to that effect. It's very similar. If I'm saying it a little bit wrong now, that's the gist of it. Meanwhile, go back in time to 1999, Woodstock. Much bigger sample size, 500,000. Again, just a quick crowd check. Take a look at the footage.
Yes.
Pretty much all white. Mostly male. That's another thing that I forgot about the Atlantic article. Most of the arrests were from men. There's you could say maybe it's because men get arrested more than women, but I think it's because more men attacked the Capitol than women. Yep. That would be my guess. So more men attended this concert than women, which turned out being very bad for the women. And their age ranges obviously were 18 to like 32, realistically, give or take. There are some people who were probably young, 15, 16, snuck out. There's probably some people who were almost 40 who were like, I want to go to Woodstock, man. It's close. Maybe they're from Rome, New York. They had nothing going on that weekend. $150 burning a hole in their pocket. So yeah, let's do it.
Anyone, is that near Nazareth by any chance?
No. It's in, oh God, where is it? There's a Greece, New York in Rochester, New York. But no.
Original name, huh?
Yeah. So, no, not Rome. It's not terribly far. If you're asking, like,
was there anyone who, was anyone from Nazareth at that time probably feeling it?
Maybe. I don't know. I never asked if anybody, assaulted women and burned down a military base. That wasn't part of my my tour at NAS. So I'm going to say most of them probably didn't go. But long story short, the people who went to Woodstock were born in between 1981 and like 1968.
Yeah, that's what it was.
1968 to 1981. Let's put it in correct order. That's the same birth date range as the people who invaded the Capitol, based on their ages. The 40-year-olds and such who have all been arrested for the January 6th would all have birthdays that fell within that same range of being 18 to 32 during Woodstock 99. So again, there was some other parts of the documentary that spoke to just a general anger in white communities, and I was not sure how I was going to react to that. I think they made an interesting case, and the case wasn't just white folks be crazy, because I don't think, not that can't be true, by the way. It's just there's no research that can back that up. But they did make a point about cultural feelings, 69 versus 99, which we talked about earlier. Like, what was there to protest? What was there to be mad about in 1999? And yet everyone is so angry.
Yeah, right.
And it's always been that way. Young people have always been angry. Realistically, they're always the angriest group. They want change. But what happens when there's no change necessary? We have it lucky. Our country almost died. There's plenty of change that needs to happen right now.
Yes.
But for people who are in a pretty good spot, to be angry all the time and to have no reason for it, it's just gonna make you angrier. And then you have nothing to channel it into. So I think they made a very good point of saying that, like, it was a young generation of an entitlement. That's something that I think even most white people, maybe not most, but enough white people will agree with. There's massive sense of entitlement within that community, like the frat boy community.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something that people, as long as you're not in the frat boy community, I think you can pretty much safely say that. So the entitlement was there as well, but it is interesting that it's the same age because, again, it wasn't a bunch of 18 to 32-year-olds who did what they did in January 6th, but it was the same 18 to 32-year-olds who did what they did in 1999.
Right.
So I don't know if it's Gen X, by the way, for the most part. So I don't know what happened with Gen X. We talk a lot about boomers and millennials, and now the what do they call themselves?
Gen Z, or they call them the Zoomies. I've heard that
the Zoomies
term getting picked up.
Sounds like the Twisties, which we'll get into in a second. But yeah, we talk a lot about those groups. No one talks about Gen X, but Gen X, low key, incredibly violent, as it
literally low key. I guess they had that kind of negative and anger, passion, and they channeled it for that.
And I mean, think about it. They talk a lot about grunge, right?
Yeah,
and I guess that was angry music, but this band wasn't angry.
Yeah, more just more progressive. Some of those bands, despite that, trying to get that angst. But I don't know. It's just funny to have to see whether that's corporate influence they didn't like, or they were
it was
too
no,
easy.
No. Sorry, that's the one part I didn't like. The idea that these kids who are clearly taking from, I know these kids, I do. I know them today.
Mm-hmm.
These kids clearly had mommy or daddy's credit card.
Oh yeah, that specific festival.
Ridiculous nonsense that they were upset about the capitalization of their wealth. It wasn't their wealth.
Exactly.
Anyone there who was under the age of 28 had been charging someone else's card. Absolutely. Right. So I don't want to hear that. They weren't upset that they were being taken. I mean, they were upset probably because it was freaking hot and they didn't have a lot to drink. But the idea, $4 is insane for water.
Yeah, even today, that's stupid expensive.
But it's the same as like if I went to a place, had 400 beers, and then said, "Well, water was too expensive, but the beer wasn't." So no, I don't believe for 1 second this was them. They put it on the walls and stuff when they were in the middle of their anarchy, but I don't believe for 1 second there was actually any sort of consideration for that. Yeah, they wanted to break stuff, to eloquently quote the poet Fred Durst.
The poet Fred Durst. And yeah, I guess this is one doc that shows the things that change. Things change, but they all stay the same. And
I think it says be careful of Gen X. They're liable to pop off.
Or that could be low key. This generation has something in them. Do you think they were playing with their? Someone must have been playing break stuff when they were hitting that Capitol building.
I don't know if they're all still fans of that music anymore, to be honest with you. But I don't know. I shouldn't say that because I don't know anyone who is there. I know people who supported the former president, and they're not fans of that type of music.
No Limp Bizkit fans. He's not. Fred just wouldn't be playing at the Trump.
But in fairness, doesn't mean that those people. I mean, not everyone who supported Donald Trump attacked the Capitol.
Yeah,
was still a select group of people.
Exactly.
So maybe they were. I don't know.
Well, I guess it's just quite the daunting documentary. I mean, they really had some uncomfortable footage they were showing, and
a lot of naked people.
Yeah, and well,
guys and girls, doesn't matter.
Exactly. Girls, and yeah, I guess it's just one fascinating social experiment. And bottom line, it is a great documentary.
Yeah,
and they did have both sides. I mean, that's what you like in the documentary, even if you don't agree. The John Shearer saying, "I didn't do anything wrong. You guys messed it up for yourself," and then the critics.
MTV framed it wrong.
Yeah,
there was no fire. MTV framed it wrong.
They were just using footage from something else, from another concert.
I felt so bad for those kids, the ones who showed up there, nonprofit, to try and end gun violence.
Yeah, right.
Which was legitimately a social ail that started in 1990s.
Exactly.
Like, legitimately, that was the start of the school shooter era.
Exactly.
So they were there. And all that. If you were going to have a Woodstock 99, that's one of the things you'd probably want to be against.
Yeah, and you just
and
used
they
it.
just decided to burn down the military base
Well,
with those
geez.
candles.
The only thing I wish they had more. They had a couple of the acts. They had the lead singer Korn,
Offspring.
I just wish they had some more to give their perspective. I mean, if they had Fred Durst, that would have been perfect for the
But
doc.
he probably doesn't talk about it.
True.
He did get blamed, not just by the promoter. He got blamed by a lot of people.
It would just be nice to hear his perspective all these years later in his new look.
Yeah, but he doesn't want to relitigate it, probably. Same with Kid Rock, probably.
Kid Rock.
I'm sure they don't want to go over it again.
Oh my god, that Monica Lewinsky line they showed him saying, "Oh, that was awful."
And now he hates the Clintons. He thinks they're pedophiles, I think. So.
Oh, well, somebody on Twitter probably screenshotted that. Hey, you said this.
Yeah, well, he's definitely conservative now, but I thought he was like wrapped up in like the Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of wing of the party, but I could be wrong. I don't know much about Kid Rock. I know like 2 songs. One of them is a new song, like a newer song from 2012. So.
But bottom line, it's a good doc, fascinating stuff, and love to hear all of you people checking out your input on what you thought of the doc. Now switching to other things.
Yes.
Headache giving festivals. Ryan, why don't you talk to us about your story about the most well-known Olympian at this point? Talk to us about who and the story going into it. Yes.
So this was not this week, but we were off last week.
Mm-hmm.
But while I was away, I got all this update about probably the biggest face for American athletes at this games.
Right.
Simone Biles, gymnast, like 7-time medalist. She was 6-time heading into it. She got 7.
Yes, she just got the bronze yesterday.
Got her bronze. But 4-time gold medalist. And also very unique because not a lot of gymnasts get to Olympics, especially at a high level. Right. So for her to go to 2 and medal at 2, that's pretty impressive. But she pulled herself out of competition up until, again, when was the balance beam?
Tuesday, balance beam was Tuesday.
Yeah. So she pulled herself out for over a week of competition, and everyone assumed she was injured, right? And she went out and she was like almost like yes and no. She was very honest. She's like, no physical injuries, no like rehab, no surgery or anything like that, but it's a mental thing. And she started talking about the twisties, which, in fairness to the people who, I don't want to give them fairness, but I can see how people on Twitter took that to be a made up thing because it sounds incredibly made up. So if you're a gymnast, I believe you. I believe the struggle is real. Come up with a better name. Like call it like the vortex. I don't know, something scarier. Vortex. I don't know, because twisties sounds like what I would do while I was doing gymnastics. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna jump on the trampoline, do a little twisty, and go from there. So, but long story short, very serious despite an adorable name. And yeah, she pulled herself out of competition up until this week, and it set off a massive Twitter firestorm. People supported her, but obviously, because this is America, people didn't. Mostly people who had never done Olympic gymnastics or really any athletic competition. That seemed to be the majority of people who didn't like that she pulled out. And then a lot of her, her fans and other athletes and stuff supported her decision. And I personally get it. I mean, even though I don't understand and will never understand what it is to compete at that level for anything, I also understand that if you're not 100%, you shouldn't be competing in the Olympics. I mean, that's simple. Realistically, if whatever the twisties were, and I'm still not 100% sure, I think it's just you lose your balance in the air, which makes landing and rotating particularly difficult. That's how I understand it. But whatever it is, if there's someone on the bench who can do better because you're not physically capable, mentally or otherwise, of competing at the Olympics, then you should absolutely pull yourself out. I was actually surprised at the controversy, to be honest with you. Like, again, why, if this person is openly telling you that she's not going to win, like, I get it, number one athlete. And for people who don't necessarily know athletics, I guess maybe they're like, well, you're the number one, so this shouldn't happen to you. You got to win the gold, like whatever. I don't know. But if an athlete tells you, yeah, I can't play, most of the time that means the athlete can't play.
Yeah.
Most athletes are not like, I don't feel like playing.
Especially in this,
unless they're a professional basketball player. Boom.
Yeah.
But and that's not true either. I mean, I'm sure we said this on this podcast, like Kyrie Irving in particular. I'm sure there was mental health implications to his extended absence. But like, yeah, if an athlete's telling you I can't play, it's usually not because they don't want to play. It's because they don't believe that they can, or even if they think they can, they don't believe they're going to win. They don't believe that they have the best shot at winning. And I think that's because some people are like, oh, she got a point deducted, so she didn't want to do it anymore. Well, first of all, yeah, if she's going to get points deducted and a different person's not, then, you know, I know this is a hard athletic concept, but math would dictate the person scoring more points should be the person doing it. So, I mean, the fact that this was a controversy actually surprised me, because I thought it was pretty simple math. She's like, I'm gonna do poorly and I'm gonna get a bad score. Someone else will do it and get a better score than me. So that person's got a better chance at winning the gold for the team. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. If an athlete says, I'm going to score 7, we need 8 to win. So if you put me in, we don't win. But you could try someone else. They might score 8.
Yep. And
like, you know what I mean? It'd just be silly not to, if you're the coach, it'd be silly to be like, yeah, but 7 is so good. You know what I mean? Like,
no, you want to win those medals. And it just shows some of the people who are upset their true colors. Like, why are you so serious in this? Like, give the girl a break. She's earned her place amongst the greatest. She's literally the greatest gymnast of all time. Well, yeah, like, let's be real. Who's another gymnast you're gonna say? No offense to the gymnast community, but you know, she's the household name for it. So why are we getting more mad?
And
at
that's what's wrapped up in this. That's what's wrapped up in this. That's the subtext that I wasn't saying. Is that a bunch of people don't like that a young Black woman is the face of American athletics right now.
Yeah.
And so as soon as that person had an issue, which happens to all of us, they took that as their moment to try and discredit somebody who they don't want to be the face of the Olympics team. That's the only thing I can think of. I could be totally wrong. And if you're someone who has a different opinion,
right
tell
on
us,
this.
But I have a feeling I'm right.
Yeah, right. For sure. And I agree with you too. It's just a damn shame. And we know that as we're talking about more low-key things about people's low-key attributes, we probably know what type of person they are who takes the time to bash this epic person. And yeah, I support her, honestly. And in a time of, I believe mental health should be taken more seriously, this was the right thing to do. If you don't want to, I think so many of these things in our life could have been prevented if we allowed the person to take account of their mental health. And well, she didn't. She wound up going back. She won a bronze, better than nothing. And you know, this is just what's gonna happen from now on.
I know we're about to get into the ratings for the Olympics, but look at Naomi Osaka.
Yes,
Team Japan, but very famous here in America. Best tennis player in our country, right. I believe. She also had a mental health thing. She's clearly still not past it. She was out early, 3rd round, something like that, 2nd round, to someone from the Czech Republic, who again probably worked her whole life to be at the Olympics, not taking that away from them, but you know, someone that they certainly didn't think she was going to lose to. Like, it's real. I don't understand this thought process that these athletes have to just be. This isn't Madden, you know what I mean, or 2K. It's not a computer generated version where here's the attributes, you know what I mean? Like, this person has a 90 overall passer rating, so this person's going to complete 90% of their passes. That's how Madden works. I mean, to go back to Dak Prescott, who was a big part of the early, movement for mental health and professional athletes, and he also caught a lot of flack. Like, Dak Prescott in Madden is going to be the same no matter what.
Mhm.
He has attributes in Madden. He's ranked, what is it, 85 or 87, whatever it is.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. And so his passes are going to do this X percentage of the time. He's going to get intercepted Y percentage of the time. That's not real life. And like I feel like people are equating it, like, you know what I mean? Like a high ranking in Madden means that's how the real life is. They're real people. If someone is saying, yeah, no, this is going to be a bad game, headspace is not right. You know what I mean? I don't know why would we not believe them? Why would we assume that somehow they have to suck it up? Put someone else in. That's simple. If I was a coach, it's a no-brainer. If your quarterback says, I'm going to miss, I'm going to throw all over the place, maybe don't put him in. If your tennis player says, I need to be left alone because I can't concentrate on the game, leave her alone.
Leave her
she
alone.
can't concentrate on the game. If she doesn't concentrate, she's going to lose. Seriously. And
exactly.
Again, and Simone Biles, if she said someone else can do better, like if she's telling you someone else will do better, why would you be like, well, you're supposed to be a 4-time gold medalist? No, she still is, first of all, so F off. And second, just let someone else win one.
Exactly.
If she's saying someone else has a better shot at winning it, as the coach, your job as a coach is not to give Simone Biles 400 gold medals. Your coach is to win as many gold medals as humanly possible. It doesn't really matter who does it. So if someone tells you to your face, I'm not going to do it, I can't do it, not today, you'll be like, all right, put someone else in. Maybe they won't do it either, but the first person's not because they told you they're not. No one's ever going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to win this gold medal, and then just goes ahead and wins a gold medal. No one. Everyone who wins a gold medal is at least somewhat convinced that they're going to win. You know what I mean? I
do know what you mean.
There's no one who's genuinely surprised. Like, I came out here to have fun. I didn't know I was going to be the best in the world. No one's ever, that's never the phrase. That's never how it goes. So
unless you're Michael Jordan,
just leave them alone. They know their body better than you do. And frankly, we shouldn't care who goes to the podium. We should just want them to go to the podium. And by the way, we had plenty of gold medalists in gymnasts this year. None of them Simone Biles.
Exactly.
Why? Because the people who we needed to compete competed. And Simone Biles saw that herself. It's not a diss on her.
It's an Olympic team.
She's the one who saw what was happening.
Not an Olympic person.
She
it's
saw
an Olympic team.
And she backed away gracefully because she needed time and she knew that there was people better suited to do it this year.
Damn straight. And we support her. She's still a legend no matter what. And the people who are upset about it, well, get a life. Simple as that. So, another thing. Now, whether we have seen these epic matches live, that's one thing. Or that's a whole other thing. But bottom line, Ryan, my next story that I'm bringing here is the Olympics and their viewers. And long story short, no one's watching them live. They'll get their updates on Twitter, social media, Sports Center, yada, yada, yada. But as a whole, no one's watching the Olympics. And these numbers are as accurate as yesterday, Ryan, straight from the Associated Press. 5 years ago, we had the Summer Olympics in Rio de Janeiro. 13 million people. Sorry, let me say this. Let me start with this. Yes, in the United States, they are down from the opening ceremonies in Rio de Janeiro. 51% down, 13 million less than last year. Saturday nights, big night is chill, down 57%. Last Wednesday, down 53%. Tuesday, down 58%. All in all.
That Wednesday number in particular is bad.
Oh, yes. What are people doing on a Wednesday in the summer? Not watching the Olympics. Down, as you see, all these things are above 50%. They're losing half their audience. No one's watching this damn thing. And maybe, there are people who are that, loyal, but mostly not. People aren't watching these Olympics. There's many factors you could say. First, they're doing it on prime time, and they're actually, you can find most of these games happen like 5, 6 in the morning, Tokyo time. And they're putting it all on prime time so people can find the results on Twitter in the morning. And if they really want to watch the replay, they can, but mostly they're already checking it out. Two, there's hundreds of channels of the NBC, whether your USA networks, your Sci-Fi, obviously NBC. So this is spread out amongst different channels. Then you have Peacock exclusive games you want to see. Like some of the basketball games you can only watch if you are a Peacock subscriber. When you're not watching WWE Network, you could go watch the men's basketball, which are improving. Think they realize they want to be
started horribly though.
Yeah,
start pretty low.
But bottom line, Ryan, no one's watching these games. We're talking about it, but no one's really watching them. Do you think there's anything to it? Does it matter? Do you think as the years go by, less and less people are going to watch these games, especially if you're going to throw them in Peacock and stuff like that? Do you think the Olympics are going to be a thing of the past to enjoy and they're going to be just there? Talk to me. What are you thinking about, Ryan, when it comes to the Olympics ratings?
So I have watched some of them on Peacock. I watched Canada win their little rowing thing. That was kind of cool. Yay. I really wanted Romania to win.
Canada.
But anyway, so I am watching a little bit, but
so you're part of the 48%, 42%.
I'm watching on Peacock. I'm not watching on prime time. But I will say, I think Peacock's a big reason for this. It sucks. I've said it over this podcast maybe 10 dozen times. 10 to a dozen, not 10 dozen. That's not a real number. But it sucks. It's a bad app that needs to go away. They need to give WWE Network the refund. But that's for a different day. It's a bad app. It's not intuitive. It doesn't look good. It's not functioning properly ever. So that's part of it. NBC owns it exclusively, and they're putting half of it on Peacock, and Peacock sucks. So there's that. There's also the fact that like these games, and I just went through defending Simone Biles for this, by the way, and I stand by everything I just said, but these games haven't been as good.
Yeah.
And it's not a surprise. Everything we all went through the past year, of course it's not as good. Of course that there's going to be like just residual like anxieties. Like people were preparing for 4 years. They had a regimented life. They had to go 4 years to become the best in the world at what you do. And now it's like actually 5. You'd think, again, someone who didn't do athletics, you'd be like, oh, great, that's another year. Everyone should be even better. But that's not really how it works. You know what I mean? Right. It's not just a matter of more time. It's when you do things, how you do things. Like, so it's not a surprise, but these just aren't as good as games. The games are not as good. There's no fans. That's probably a huge part of this.
Yes.
With the exception of like Michael Phelps for some reason. He was there, but there's really no fans there. And there's also just a lot going on for people. Delta variant, like it's you couldn't this game is a year late, so it was doomed from the start, because in order for an Olympics to be a year late, that means you've probably had a pretty busy year.
Yeah.
So people just don't care right now. Like you want to care. I think everyone wants to care, and there's going to be the bad faith arguments that the wokeness of athletics or the changing of America is reducing people's patriotism. And anyone who has that thought, fine, but you're wrong and you're doing it in bad faith. We see.
Yeah.
And that's what people are going to say about this. But the fact of the matter is there's just so much going on that I don't care if our beach volleyball team wins a gold medal. My life will not change based upon that. Their life will, and good on them, but I don't care. Like there's just so much going on, with COVID and with everything that we just went through last year in terms of like a pretty tumultuous year, civil strife, we'll put it that way, like elections we just got done with that, and we're still kind of even dealing with some of the fallout from that. Everything has become a political like discussion. Everything. How we teach people, what we teach people, how people congregate, where people congregate. Like everything has become politicized to a point that there's just so much to care about, that whether or not two people you'll never meet win a gold medal or not. Like the only shared attribute I have with the U.S. men's rowing team is that we're both from the United States. And I don't know where everyone's from. I'm going to assume that none of them are from Alaska or Hawaii. So I'll go even further. We're both from the continental United States. There's absolutely no other shared attribute. There might be someone from New Jersey. So I guess that would be a shared attribute. But like, their lives and my lives are not intertwined. And they never were, by the way. I'm not saying that suddenly we've become disconnected with the Olympics, but I was saying that I think for a while people didn't care. Like, yeah, nothing about this changes my life, but it's nice to see an Olympic gold medalist win. And I think life has just gotten so messy that people are like, listen, I'm sure it's fine. They'll do good. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Well,
and I don't believe, again, I just don't think people are in the mood to be entertained right now.
Yeah, well, what are you gonna do? It is a weird year. We're still in the pandemic, but we still support our American athletes. We hope they do well, and we'll see them all again in a few years. And then don't forget, 2028 Summer Olympics are in the United States at Los Angeles. So hopefully there'll be more ratings then.
Gonna pull that off.
Well,
seriously,
they always like to surprise us, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah,
and see who's at the opening ceremonies then. If Logan Paul is president or
boxing,
something.
He'll be the boxer. Yeah, he'll be professional at that point.
Logan Paul getting the Olympic gold medal, or Jake Paul in boxing.
Him and KSI. That's gonna be the boxing team we sent.
Well, we know how we all feel about that. But on other things, Ryan, talk to us about what's going on with AEW that was trending this week. Any chance we could talk wrestling and incorporate it? We always can, but wrestling is starting to. Is there something to this trending stories? Is wrestling getting edgy again?
Well, wrestling trends every week, actually, just only when the show is on and people are talking about it. Yeah, no, like I said, I've become the de facto wrestling correspondent, which is fine.
Bless you.
But yeah, like AEW, for those of you who don't know, because we don't talk about it a lot, you and I, because we don't really watch it all that much, you and I.
How much AEW watching?
I catch up with the clips. I watch it every once in a while, but I don't watch it. I wanted to watch it because my favorite wrestler of all time is there, although I don't like him as much on AEW. Actually, I don't know what it was. And I mean, don't get me wrong, Dean Ambrose in his final years was horrific too. So WWE did poorly, so I get why he left. But like I hated the last after he returned, it was great, and then the character that did afterward with the weird shot and all that. No, not a fan. But so I get why he left, but I don't know. And actually, I do know, and we're going to talk about it just right in about a second. But they had not one but two trending topics that were not associated with just the show being on TV that day. So the first one, they had a highly anticipated. It's not the right word. Most people didn't care, but they had a big match featuring a death match specialist. For those of you who don't know, don't worry about it. But they're very violent, and I know it's fake. These are still very violent interactions. They're very hard to watch. Not for me. Some people really love it. Most of those people live in a field in Delaware. But I digress. His name is Nick Gage. He was just on Dark Side of the Ring. He just had a documentary done about him, which I think is probably a big part of why this happened.
Promotion.
Yeah, well, Jericho is the executive producer of that now, Chris Jericho, for those of you who don't know. And so Chris Jericho, and Nick Gage had this death match on TV. Nick Gage is very famous for his pizza cutter. He uses a pizza cutter to cut open his opponents. He's done it to Chris Jericho now, but he did it famously to David Arquette, the actor, in a match that was not supposed to feature a pizza cutter. He did it to Dean Ambrose and CZW back when, or John Moxley, I should say. I got to make sure I say his name right. So pizza cutter is a big thing for him. He likes the pizza cutter. And now on TNT for the first time ever. Again, he's never been on like primetime TV, not primetime, I guess primetime TV.
Yeah.
He's never been on, prime time like that, but he was this time when he used his pizza cutter, and it was a picture-in-picture ad, and the ad playing was for Domino's Pizza. Clearly, somebody in the clearly someone in the back, like in the production truck, saw that they had an ad coming up for Domino's and said, "Wouldn't this be perfect?" Clearly, someone. I know they say that was an accident. Tony Khan has said it was an accident, and that's fine. But I was born at night, but not last night, sort of thing. Clearly, it was on purpose. And
talk about
Domino's
product placement.
Domino's was not happy with that product placement. Did not want to be associated with that product placement or with AEW anymore.
And they pulled out?
I don't know if they've officially pulled out, but they were very mad.
They don't want a Walls of Jericho pizza?
I guess not. So off the heels of AEW trying to make nice with corporate partners for, again, what they're calling a random happenstance, but what everybody knows is completely not random. They had one of their YouTube shows. So again, this one not on TV, which makes it only marginally better. But one of their performers comes out and does a quick freestyle rap. He's always, in my opinion, been a jerk in these raps. Granted, he's a bad guy, so it makes sense. He's always been, in my opinion, a little conservative in these raps. We'll get into that in a second. But again, he's being a bad guy, so that could be that. And more importantly, he could very well just be conservative, and that's fine too. But this time it wasn't fine. In his rap, he the worst line by like a lot was he said he was going to I don't know if I should swear or not, but
you can swear on this. Yeah.
He said he was gonna like treat these bitches like the Duke lacrosse team. And for those of you who don't know what that is reference to, obviously look it up, but it's about allegations of sexual assault by the Duke lacrosse team. He also calls the COVID-19 testing fake, and he made fun of female performers' genitals. This was
sounds like a dick.
Yeah. This was all on YouTube. This was all on the episode. That means
uncensored too.
Uncensored. They edited the show, put it together, put it out there with all of this in there. Everybody watched it last night and said, "What the heck is going on? Are you insane?" Tony Khan again said that he doesn't edit this show, but going forward he will. And they did take it down and upload it without the entrance.
Well, Tony Khan has played, knows how to play Peacekeeper, or maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
Well, Tony Khan, yeah, it's interesting. Tony Khan, I think, is the executive we wish ran WWE.
Really?
I think so. And here's why. Tony Khan has a lot of money, which is great. But he's working with a bunch of, and I don't mean this with disrespect, I'm a massive wrestling fan. Everyone who's listened to your podcast knows this. He's working with a bunch of carnival barkers. These are wrestlers. Cody's a wrestler. Kenny Omega's a wrestler. The Young Bucks are a wrestler. All of his EVPs are wrestlers. That's how this started, was a wrestlers company by wrestlers. He's just the other guy. He's the money guy they hired because none of them had enough money to do this on their own.
And he's really young.
He's very young, but I mean, he's been in this world for a long time. So he knows how to run a business. I'm not at all saying that. I'm saying he is the progressive, modern voice of wrestling that we wish a polished, modern company like WWE had. AEW is not that company. It was never meant to be that company. The minute they hired every single retired professional wrestler from WWE, they made it clear. Well, the fired is different. I'm not talking about that, actually. That, hiring Malachi Black, Andrade, Miro / Rusev, hiring those people was an absolute no-brainer. There's a couple more people they should probably be hiring, but especially if Adam Cole ends up leaving WWE. But that's not the point. The point is that that's not what I'm talking about. Those people are young, they're new. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about JR, Jim Ross. I'm talking about The Big Show.
Mhm.
Talking a little bit about Christian, although he's worked out fine. I'm talking about Mark Henry. I'm talking about Taz. I'm talking about Tully Blanchard. I'm talking about Jake the Snake Roberts. I'm talking about, and I could Sting. Sting's actually kind of worked out too. And if it was just Sting, I wouldn't be saying any of this, by the way, because Sting and Darby Allin have worked out fairly well. But again, also Sting and Darby Allin is the star of that pairing. He does everything. Sting is kind of just there to make it feel more important.
And he's pushing 60, so what could else we do?
Sting is almost just dressing at that point. You know what I mean? And I get that they were all meant to be that, but when you do it 180 times, and then again, you've got Dustin Rhodes, who's still active. He's been wrestling for forever.
Yeah.
This is an old company. It's a new company in terms of its existence. But all the people who wrestle there are old or very young. And when I say very young, that's important because in wrestling, well, most of that means not WWE experience, probably not even like Impact experience. I'm talking like off the indie scene, maybe Ring of Honor experience.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. So they're doing so. You know, you can say that rap in a gym. You know what I mean? You can say that rap at American Legion Hall in Buffalo, New York.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people are still going to boo you, and it's still not good to say, by the way. I'm not saying it's okay to say it there, but I'm saying that no one would know about it. Your career's not going to take a hit. You're going to get the boos you're looking for because you're the bad guy, and you're such a good bad guy. But you can't say it on TNT. You can't say it on USA Network. You can't say it on Sci-Fi or Fox. You can't say it there. And that's something that these people, like these young people, don't know. And it's something that the older folks don't believe. Max Caster's young. He's the rapper / wrestler who did this. I believe, honestly, that he didn't know that this was really good. I mean, he knew it was wrong, I'm sure, because that's why he said it. But I really didn't think. I think he thought that as a bad guy, there is no line. You could cross whatever line he needed to cross. He's the bad guy. You know what I mean? I mean, Sammy Guevara, who I like a lot, on that same show, he had some comments about women that were not good, and he got in a lot of trouble. This is a while back. It's unrelated to the current stories that are trending, but still. And he's apologized because, again, I think he's someone who actually has a bright future, and he, I think, realized that and is trying to correct it. But like, they just didn't realize that people cared what they said, because people didn't care what they said for a very long time. And then the people, again, who are the older folks that are involved in this, they're like the old school wrestlers. So they're the ones who are like, okay, and now all the good guys hold the bad, the heel girl down and give her a kiss. That's something that did happen. Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt. They're, you know who they are. You've seen, you know who they are. Again, for like that generation, that's totally cool. It was never cool, by the way, but that's totally what wrestling was. Like, how you gonna get back at the evil team? You're gonna kiss his girlfriend. That'll show him. And of course she doesn't want it, but she's the bad guy, so you can force her to do it because she's the bad guy. That's not real life. It's certainly not acceptable in 2021. And for all of its faults, WWE has had some horrific segments. In 2021, WWE knows this. I don't know if they always knew that. Actually, let me rephrase that. They certainly didn't always know this. There is evidence of the contrary. But in 2021, WWE knows this. So Tony Khan, if he had WWE's like production team and he had WWE's infrastructure, I feel like that would be the best wrestling show on television. That's my hot take. But I do think AEW is going to have to find a balance, because they're trying to be a company by wrestlers, for wrestlers, and for the fans. They want to be the anti-WWE, but the corporate side of WWE, as much as it bothers some people, it bothers people the wrong way, because this issue doesn't happen in WWE anymore. That's very important to say.
Yeah.
AEW is only 4 years old or 3 years old.
They have
WWE is
matured.
much older, and they have matured over a very long period of time. But that doesn't happen with them anymore. And the reason it doesn't happen with them anymore is because of the corporate side, because there's 180 people who tell you all of the ways that this is going to really be a problem for networks, for advertisers, for viewers, you know? And I don't think AEW has that. And if they do have that, they haven't hired the right people. They've hired people who are from a previous era who don't recognize what changes are happening in the landscape. Yes, corporate oversight is no reason for like bad writing. All this, Drew McIntyre's giant sword, whatever, like that's all silly, stupid. It's for kids. Raw is for children. Raw is for children, like young children.
Yeah.
SmackDown's better. I don't watch Raw, really. I catch the recaps at this point because it's not for me. I'm way too old for Monday Night Raw. Which is fine. You can make a children's show. I wouldn't make it your flagship show, but that's just me. And a lot of people, I think, are equating that with the corporate like oversight. The show is bad because there's corporate. No, show is bad because I don't know if they hired bad writers or if the writers aren't being allowed to do certain things. I don't know why the show's bad. It's not corporate. Because when you don't have the writers do it, when you don't have that oversight and you let the wrestlers do it, which is what everyone says they want, this is what they come up with. This is what they come up with.
Yeah, again,
and it's
the more they stay the same, the more they change, the more they stay the same.
Exactly. And like I said, I don't like Moxley as much. Why? Because he doesn't have a writer anymore. He was really good at his character. He didn't like it. His new character, I don't like it. Now his new character is not offensive, but but his new character is like supposed to be like this old school bruiser, and I don't care. I didn't watch wrestling in 1981. I didn't. I wasn't born yet. I wasn't even old enough to riot at Woodstock. Okay, like full circle. I just don't care about those characters, those throwback characters, and that's what it is. Wrestlers are creative in a lot of ways, but some more than others. And I think this is an example of sometimes they need a team to say, hey, I get it. You're supposed to be a tool on TV. That was a little far. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got.
Well, I guess we'll have to, again, just have to see where things lie. But, it should be interesting to see with AEW's sake how the whole event at Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens, see what happens. Is the rumors true about Brian Danielson, aka Daniel Bryan, or CM Punk coming to the big show there?
Those are both true. CM Punk will be in Chicago at some point.
Oh, is that going to make a change in influence to see where AEW goes? Are you going to have all these fans who scream at the WWE shows, CM Punk, CM Punk? Will that be the focus now, making him the big star? I think that's going to be.
I have to assume so. It'd be silly not to.
I think that's where we're going to see things go with AEW, and it'll be an interesting story for wrestling fans. And they won't need to have pizza cutters and rappers who are trying to be offensive, and they can, focus on a major comeback in the whole industry.
But one person does not a show make.
True. Exactly. Great point.
You can't bury the pizza cutters. Yeah, you can't bury the pizza cutter just because CM Punk showed up. Man. It's there. And it's a problem that they'll have to eventually, their mid card is going to eventually have to, not just the mid card, their whole show is going to eventually have to have some more oversight if they want to be real. They don't have to be real either, but if they want Domino's to be sponsors, as an example, that pizza cutter gag, and again, it was clearly a gag. I refuse to believe the story they're telling us. That can't happen. It won't. I mean, they'll pull out. They don't need it. They don't need AEW. There's no need. They're doing it for fun, or they're doing it for money. But like, there's other shows they could advertise on, like WWE.
Exactly.
I'm sure they do advertise on WWE, but there's just other stuff. They don't need this. So they're not going to put up with BS that they don't need.
It's going to be an interesting month for wrestling indeed. Now, other interesting things too. Speaking of comebacks, instead of a wrestling comeback, a possible Hollywood comeback that people love. We haven't had a real great Hollywood comeback in a while, but once a staple of the early 2000s and late 90s, there was an actor named Brendan Fraser who, like I said, for a solid 5-6 year period was pretty popular. The Mummy franchise was huge. Looney Tunes back in action.
Right to the center of the earth. He got
Yeah.
replaced on that one.
Oh fuck, I forgot about that. You also have Georgia the Jungle. You have who else what else you got? You got, Crash, School Ties. I mean, this guy, Encino Man, big he
Who's
had
in
a big
Encino Man? I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. And he was
That's the Pauly Shore one, right?
exactly.
Okay.
And the guy who played Rudy. But yeah, he was in that. But yeah, Brendan Fraser, pretty popular person, and he disappeared in the spotlight. I genuinely don't know where he went. I'm sure if I went on a deep dive, I could figure it out. But very quiet for someone who had a big name. There was that famous meme that came out of him signing a picture at a steak restaurant saying, "I love the steak. It was really good. I was in The Mummy," just in case you forgot. And but hey, maybe he doesn't have to be a parody of himself because he was just cast in Martin Scorsese's recent film. I have it right here. It is called, an Apple exclusive film, by the way, Killers of the Flower Moon, that stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Robert De Niro, two of the biggest names in Hollywood history and now. And with Jesse Plemons there as well. And Brendan Fraser has been cast in a role in the film. And many people think
it's a real role too, right? Like starring role.
Exactly. He's in the cast. Not a cameo or anything. He is a significant role.
He's not dead body number one.
No. So, well, first things first, Ryan. How excited are you for this? Are you happy for this? Do you want to see Brendan Fraser make a big comeback, especially in this streaming digital Hollywood era? What do you think of this possible comeback on the horizon?
Yeah,
Brendan Fraser.
I'm lukewarm at best. Only because I forgot all about Brendan Fraser. I mean, listen,
as all of us did.
Exactly. It's not just me. But I mean, I'm happy for him, I guess, because I just like it when people have a good time as opposed to a bad time.
The Mummy.
Right. So I'd be good on him. Obviously, don't begrudge somebody making a living, but in terms of like, do I think this is going to shake up Hollywood? No. I mean, he went away for a reason, right?
I don't. I assume so. I really don't know. I'm sure if I took the time.
I find it hard to believe that he left like on his own. You know what I mean? I don't think this was I'm taking a break from Hollywood. I think this was more of a Hollywood didn't really need Brendan Fraser anymore.
Exactly.
And so they stopped casting him.
I'm looking at the filmography, and you have some breaks. Some here I see a lot of direct-to-video films, a lot of voice roles.
See, that's how you know that it wasn't his idea to leave.
Exactly.
When you have the video game like voice roles and the direct-to-video films, that's how you're pretty sure that it was somebody else's decision to end your movie career, not your own.
Right. But some movies here are in other countries being made and stuff.
Right,
a lot of indies.
But again, I think what it comes down to is, you said this was Scorsese, right?
Yeah, Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, Scorsese. He's just cashing in now. So I don't know how much I'm gonna put like stock into this movie, especially because it's Apple exclusive. I'm sure old Scorsese would have hated that, but Scorsese is not gonna put Leo and DeNiro in a movie he doesn't think will do well. He's expecting this movie to be watched by a lot of people. Otherwise, he wouldn't have cast them.
As I see right here, a budget $200 million.
Yeah. So clearly this is a big movie. Again, just by the 2 stars of the movie, you can tell that. So good on him. I mean, he'll probably make a decent amount. And if he does well, I mean, it'd be interesting if he plays a bad guy because he was always the action hero. That was his character, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Action hero. He was leading man. You liked him and stuff like that.
So I'm just by the name, I'm assuming
He was a
there's some
face.
sort of killer or serial killer or something in this movie.
Yeah, I have the premise right here. It says members of the Osage tribe in the United States are murdered under mysterious circumstances in the 1920s, sparking a major FBI investigation involving J. Edgar Hoover. And it was based off a nonfiction book.
And I have to assume that he's not playing Hoover. So
no, it says the role here specifically, it is he plays somebody named W.S. Hamilton.
All right, who are Leo? Actually, who are Leo and DiCaprio? Leo DiCaprio. Who are Leo and DeNiro playing?
It says here Leonardo plays a guy named Ernest Burkhart, who was a real person, and it says here, Ernest Burkhart. It says, well, I guess this kind of gives he's
either the FBI or he's the serial killer.
Yeah, I think he's one of. I'm trying to sum this up on this page.
All right, let me say this. But
the DeNiro one is
Fraser
more easy.
Is Brendan Fraser playing the serial killer?
It doesn't seem like it. No. I have no idea.
So this won't be nearly as cool.
The only ones have the actual names just on this Wikipedia page. The Robert De Niro character has his old page. He plays this guy named William Hale. He was an American cattleman and convicted murderer. Okay. So De Niro plays the murderer.
Yeah, for sure.
And I guess I'm just assuming that DiCaprio's playing the cop on the run with Jesse Plemons.
Okay, well then maybe Fraser is the other murderer. How many murderers are there? We don't know.
Yeah, according to here, he's the fifth. He's the fifth lead up, according to this.
Yeah, so
goes De Niro, two people, and then Brendan Fraser.
Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens. Obviously, we're not trying to give the whole movie away, but if he's playing a serial killer, long story short, I think that would be good for his career if he does well. Mm-hmm. If he's playing,
like De Niro's henchman or something,
right? Or if he's like a love interest of some kind, like you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm not saying he can't be good, but if he's just playing, what he always played, but in a Scorsese movie, then he'll make a lot of money, and that's good for him. But it's probably not going to change the number of phone calls he gets.
Right. Exactly. So, it's just really, I like the idea of the Hollywood comeback. We really haven't had one in a while, not that I can think of, at least. I just wonder, why do you think Brendan Fraser fell off the spotlight? You think it was as simple as a bad agent? Were people tired of the Mummy?
I think.
I mean, Looney Tunes back in action. Not that it was exactly a masterpiece, but I don't know. Maybe people got annoyed from that.
I wonder if movies just kind of changed on him a little bit too.
Yeah, you could really do a case study on actors who were big at one point that fell, then disappeared. But I don't know.
The
I just
family
think it's
action
cool.
movie kind of went away. Like, name a recent family action movie that
Yeah,
wasn't a full-on comedy. Because I mean, Looney Tunes is comedy, obviously, but I think of like The Mummy.
I guess the only thing is that Jungle Cruise coming out with The Rock.
Well, that's different. Totally different. Because The Rock can make whatever. The Rock could just sit in front of the camera for an hour and release that in every theater in America. The Rock made a TV show to run for president. Check out my old TweetCap episode on it for more information.
Well, either way, we'll see what happens. We'll see if the world falls in love with Brendan Fraser again. And, that joke could be a thing of the past.
So that's what's good.
Where he was in The Mummy. And
now he's in the Scorsese.
Exactly. So let's just see what happens, and I hope it works out for him. And our final story for today, Ryan, very interested to see what you got to say about this. Another story that technically happened last week, but they're not full-fledged. But it was recently announced last week, or I should say 2 weeks ago, that Call Her Daddy, the popular podcast from Barstool, was bought by Spotify for $60 million, bringing the host Alexandra Cooper and all of the Call Her Daddy IP and merchandise to make it exclusively owned by Spotify, with merchandise being handled by Barstool, and that's it. So Call Her Daddy is an official Spotify exclusive podcast, joining other huge podcasting groups like Bill Simmons, The Ringer, Joe Rogan. Now you have Alex Cooper. Spotify is clearly making a big move in the audio sphere.
LPN.
Yeah, LPN, another one. Spotify wants to be, I mean, obviously major in providing music to the world, but they want the big names in podcasting. So with this story, there's two ways to go. We could always talk about Call Her Daddy going there, and then Spotify. So Spotify being a major game in the podcasting sphere with this move. So we'll focus on the Call Her Daddy first.
Yeah.
But, this is really cool. I think, I do pay attention to Call Her Daddy. You can see the back of my head in the studio. There's a wall of the two original hosts. I think it's just really cool. People our age making a name for the podcasting world. And it's really interesting what they did with that. And I think it's an awesome move for Alex Cooper. And it's good for her. Now she's no longer associated with Barstool. I think this is just shows that, I think even Dave Portnoy mentioned, we are at a place now where we can launch these people to greener pastures. And this is a great example of that, having literally the most popular podcast on Spotify. I looked at it today.
Portnoy's been supportive.
Yeah, he was very happy to move in. He said that, we want to launch people now. And this is, this topic, this could be the minor leagues to the major leagues somewhere else. I think this is a good example of that. And for a legitimate, good podcast, I think that's awesome. What do you think of the whole Call Her Daddy going to Spotify and the move that Alex Cooper's making?
I was going to say, I don't know many people who have a problem with Spotify exclusives, except for, and I talked to you and another group of Joe Rogan fans who kind of confirmed this. Joe Rogan fans don't like the Spotify exclusive Joe Rogan experience.
Yes.
For whatever reason. And I could see, because it was a bar, in my brain, and I know this is my lizard brain because I don't really like either of them, Portnoy or Rogan. I don't hate them. I don't dislike them, but I'm just not a fan of either group. And the same feeling about both of those guys in particular. Very successful, obviously very good at what they do. Not for me. And in my brain, I see their fans as very similar. Barstool and Joe Rogan experience. I see a lot of overlap there. I could be wrong. I don't have any audience information in front of me. But if I'm not wrong, and there are a lot of overlap between the two, I could see the Barstool contingent not liking this. Now, but again, if this is if they've almost grown their own, obviously they must have done a little bit to grow their own fan base that doesn't really give a crap about Barstool overall, just cares about, their show, then it'll be fine. But for whatever reason, I feel like the people who like Joe Rogan are also people who listen to Barstool's content. And I know that a lot of people who like Joe Rogan don't like that he's Spotify exclusive, and they feel like Spotify is ruining his show. Mm-hmm. So I would worry about that. I mean, obviously money-wise, it's a no-brainer. This is awesome, and they get out from underneath, they get out from underneath a different company. They're their own IP. Before they were a brand under the Barstool umbrella. Now they're not. I mean, yes, they're under Spotify's umbrella, but they're their own brand. You know what I mean? So that's huge. And I wouldn't discredit that. But it'd just be interesting to see if people like the show still. Not to be blunt about it, but to see if there's any backlash. Because again, I know shows that didn't get backlash. I don't think anyone is upset with, Bill Simmons for his move. I think I doubt any of that changed. I know last podcast, again, and I have no numbers for any of this, by the way, but last podcast network, I haven't heard a lot of negative things about their exclusive contract. They, in fairness, because I listened to them specifically, they very much centered it around
it's still free. You still don't have to pay. You just have to download one more app. And that was a big
Just
part
one
of
more.
that was a big part of their, like, what they were selling was like, yes, it's not on Apple Music anymore, but you just download Spotify. It's still totally free. You just get ads with your music. So I would say that it can be done. And I don't know what, Call Her Daddy did in terms of like prepping people or when this officially starts and all that stuff. But it'll be interesting because I know that, again, The Ringer did really well. I feel like they've only grown since they went Spotify exclusive.
Yep.
But I know that Joe Rogan has had the opposite experience, and I worry that their show has a lot of people who are, on the Joe Rogan side of the equation, not the Bill Simmons side of the equation. I don't know that, though. I don't know if I could totally be wrong. I could have all that backwards. Maybe there's more overlap between Ringer fans and Rogan fans. But I just feel like Barstool and Rogan are very similar and their fans are very similar. And I would worry that since we know that the Rogan fans turned on the Spotify contract, what will the Barstool fans do? But right. Dave Portnoy is supporting them, which is awesome, because that's basically, that's El Presidente there saying, no, keep listening. It's good. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And
so that's going to help, I think.
And it'll allow him to say, okay, so we can now, with this move, we can be known as a podcasting network that will launch people to bigger places.
He was going to do that. He was going to do that anyway.
True. This shows that this will work and get legitimacy and more reasons to go to those shows.
But the fact that he's promoting it openly and not just like internally, like, well, we did a good job with that one. Like the fact that he's openly telling people that means that he does genuinely believe that this is a good move for them.
For sure. Yeah.
And so that's probably gonna help a little bit.
This is about 2 weeks old, this story. Now, the Call Her Daddy and Alex Cooper specifically, her fans are very loyal to her. I mean, they love her. I mean, I've seen people comment like, you're a god to us and stuff. And, hashtag Daddy Gang is big. So I do feel in due time, if it really is a problem, people will let their opinions be known.
Yeah.
But for now, I think it's just awesome stuff. I'm always supportive of podcasters now, especially because both of us are doing this, seeing where they keep growing and stuff and getting content for a relatively new industry. I just support the move and I think it's awesome. I think it's hilarious. Her partner, what was her name? Sophia, wanted to had that big breakup because they wanted more money, Suit Man and all of that. And if she only hung on for a year later, she would have got the money she wanted and leaving Barstool. But, she kind of got greedy too soon. And, that's going to cost her. And she'll always be known as, that girl. Yep. She's the, Brian Dunkelman of American Idol with Ryan Seacrest. Ryan Seacrest had a second co-host.
I don't think it was Brian Dunkelman, though.
I'm like confident. I'm pretty sure that was his first. Let me look it up really quick because that's just, no offense, that's a funny name.
Yeah, it's not a name. That's not a name that could host American Idol, probably.
And I guess that's why he did. Yep, it says it right here. Hosted by Ryan Seacrest and Brian Dunkelman, who quit after the first season. And now he's just known as that guy.
You ever been so wrong about something in your life?
Sometimes I try to think about it, but yeah, I guess it's an example of that. But well, $60 million ain't bad. And
no,
if only she just has to cringe at that. They had a great thing going, and
I'm sure she could still use it to make her own show. I'm sure it'll work out fine. Maybe she'll go back to Barstool. Oh no, she didn't like Barstool though, so she won't do that. But
yeah, with the Suit Man.
Yeah, she didn't like Barstool, so she won't do that. But maybe she'll go to, I don't know. Who else is doing it? I feel like Spotify's the only person who's doing these exclusive contracts.
The one I know, Stitcher has some exclusive, and Luminary, like the Trevor Noah's podcast is a Luminary exclusive one.
Okay, so there's also not
Mark
that
Maron's his archive is exclusive to Stitcher. Like the first 3 months, all podcasting platforms have it, but like the whole archive.
Yeah. Well, so, and I was also going to say, there's also, even if they're not exclusive to
whatever, there are podcasting networks that post everywhere. But the
Exactly.
network, I mean, there
Right.
are big networks too. I mean, she could end up doing something with another network.
For
right?
sure.
I mean,
But
she's
you
got to
know,
have a following. Some
exactly. And you know, you hit on the nail a little bit in your first point before, but the fact that, yeah, Spotify really is trying to make a name for themselves. You know, when
following. No one else is doing it.
yeah, and Howard Stern, when he was available at the time negotiating contract with Sirius, Spotify reached out to him. They wanted him to go to podcasting.
Mhm.
That would have been an interesting move. I doubt, you know, obviously he didn't do it for a
He should
reason.
have.
But yeah, I mean, as long as he took his archive back with him.
Yeah, I think he missed the boat on that. I mean, now maybe he couldn't get the archive, in which case he's not worth that much. But
Yeah,
if he could have got the archive to go with him, I mean, his show as a radio show is fine. But
Spotify
honestly,
is everyone. And I mean,
yeah,
I've had
everyone has Spotify.
I
And-
naturally had the Spotify exclusive just because I wanted my music without breaks, and it's
Yeah,
easy
same.
for me to have, you know, the extra podcasting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just really interesting move. So you think that's the way we're gonna go? Like we're gonna just have different podcasting networks have their own special talent with them, like an Apple
For sure.
Podcast or a Stitcher,
I don't know about
as
Apple.
I mentioned.
I don't think all of them are going to do it. I don't think all of them see the value in it yet because it is a small group of people.
Yeah, so you think it's Spotify? You think Spotify is on its way? I think it's pretty even that Spotify and Apple are the two main sources to go to.
Oh yeah,
To go to get your podcast. But you think even in due time, in a couple of years now, Spotify will be the one. Spotify will be Coke while Apple is
it'd be
Pepsi or
interesting to
such.
see. Like, I wonder if Spotify stops like hosting us eventually.
They'll kick it out. You don't have it enough.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like if they
I hope
they
not.
if they
God
only
forbid.
put Spotify artists on Spotify, you know what I mean?
So SiriusXM does podcasts as well. That's the one that you have to be a special talent to get there, like Kevin Hart's
Right. So I'm
and
saying
stuff.
like,
You think
so-
that's what Spotify will do soon?
yeah, I wonder if they end up not soon, but I wonder if that's where this ultimately ends up.
Well, we have to get big before they kick us out.
Well, then what will happen is people will start going to the other ones, and then one of those companies will grow based off that. I mean, Spotify and all these companies are growing because all these people were on Spotify already.
Yeah.
Now they're just exclusive to Spotify. So by canceling other people's ability to be on your platform, you're just giving your rival the next artist. You're giving your rival the
Exactly.
next artist. So if everyone's on Apple and on Spotify, because Spotify only goes with their exclusive artists, the next big thing is going to happen on Apple.
Yeah,
That's the whole point. They could buy them from Apple. That's possible. But all
Ooh.
Apple has to do is offer a bunch of money, and they certainly have a bunch of money.
Well, this
So-
is a good time to start that journey to get exclusive. And between that and podcast discovery, so I was talking with someone about the big trends in the industry coming a professional.
Mhm.
I think it's just cool for podcasting in general. I find I meet more people who are into it more than ever.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously so accessible now and it's free, and we'll take advantage of it when it's free. If they,
Exactly.
you know, if subscription services are pushed and you have to pay a monthly fee for podcasts, well, shit.
That'll change a little bit.
Yeah, but for now, we enjoy the free content that's easy and accessible to make as long as you put the time and effort and cash into it. But yeah, I think just the story just shows that podcasting is a legit medium and platform to go to for people. And when it's only growing up from here, you know?
Yeah. For
So
sure.
Rice win with that. And it's been great with it. So Ryan, it's been a blast as always. Is there anything else you want to say before we sign off for today?
No, I don't think so.
All set.
I think we're good. I mean, there's so much going on. Next time we do one of these things, I feel like we'll still be going back 3 weeks to catch up, but that's okay.
Exactly. So next time you'll be on, it will be, so we have our week off is the week of the 16th. And then that Saturday SummerSlam, which
Hopefully.
we will hopefully, are they saying some things?
I saw a weird rumor. Nothing to report yet.
Okay, so we'll let that go, I guess. But assuming everything's on par, we'll have our SummerSlam show, bring back our guys Duran and AJ the Man, and then we'll have our TweetCap after that. So good times ahead. Don't forget to check out Ryan and the TweetCap, whether following. Whether you
At
check out
TweetCap.
Yep, at TweetCap. Go follow at TT at TTQuet. At TweetCap. At TTweet. At 3, 2, 1. At TweetCap. Go there. Check out the exclusive content regarding the TweetCap. And Ryan, thanks again for another epic story and an epic podcast. Us reflecting on the news. And I'll see you very, very soon.
Very productive. Such a good conversation. It's synergy, Matt. It's synergy.
Appreciate you, Ryan, and I'll talk to you really soon.
All right. See ya.